Welcome back, blade lovers. We present today the Dirk Pinkerton Smilodon, or Smilodon, however you choose to pronounce that. Another form of prehistoric raptor dinosaur that I'm not too familiar with, but the concept being claws and being rending flesh. This is yet another take on a Pikal knife, or you could see it as a Libre fighting sort of a knife, defensive knife. Dirk Pinkerton, the designer, and this is a custom, by the way, by Dirk Pinkerton in CTS XHP. The concept being that the knife is held point down. And let's see if we can make a little more space to show that. So generally speaking, the knife is going to be carried in such a way that it can be withdrawn this way with the point down. And you can see that this is a double-edged knife. So we have both this possibility and we have that possibility, but also we have this possibility. You're a little more shortchanged on handle real estate when you're holding it in a point up position, but it can be done. If you're careful, you could even sneak your thumb over that dull portion of the handle, kind of a ricasso area, if you want to call it that, but very carefully so. Personally, I wouldn't hold it that way, but you can get a full grip on it. Even though it is a small fixed blade knife, you can get a solid hold on it with all four fingers and be able to use it in this fashion, kind of like they do in some other defense and fighting systems, where if somebody grabs your wrist, then you're going to cut up on them like that. So without getting into too many nasty details, because that's not what this is about. It's more a showing of the knife itself and not so much a demonstration of the purpose. Came with some very fine edges. Dirk Pinkerton is known for his extremely detailed work. Not always fancy in the terms of collectible looking knives, but always very precisely executed. So you can see the longitudinal satin finish on this knife going along the flat, and you can see some very nice work on the main grind of the blade. And they meet right about there and join together perfectly at the point on both sides. So he does extremely good work. Bob DeMarco, my good buddy over at the Knife Junkie, has a number of Dirk Pinkerton knives. Well, one or two, I think, customs. And I know he picked his last one up at Blade Show in Atlanta. So what we've got here is G10 that has been roughly finished so that the weave is very evident, and it is not a deep, but it is a very grippy surface, and that's a good thing, because as I said, it's a small knife. It's a small knife for a reason. It's a small knife so it can be concealable. If you need more handle real estate, you go to something larger, but then you may be over the limit for your area. However, with this one being double-edged, you may already be transgressing some local laws. Depends upon where you're carrying. And it comes with a very nicely made Kydex sheath with altogether 7-8 grommets. So this could be hung as a neck knife. It did not come with any belt hardware. You could potentially carry it in the pocket, but I find that it does not thumb off very easily. You got a big ear up here, which potentially could be used for something, but right now it's basically being used to hold the knife in the sheath. and it comes out very firmly, not overly tight, as you can see. When you grab it and you need it, it comes out. There is, I noticed, for those that mind, a little bit of blade rattle in that sheath. It's possible because the shape of the blade makes the making of a Kydex sheath pretty challenging. And if you make it too tight, you're not going to get it out, because you've got the blade down here and you got the handle up here. So we can get into that a little bit later, but there are other carry methods. I would recommend a belt loop, a strap where you can wear this inside the pants, very similar to inside the waistband carry for pistols. So let's take, or continue to take, a look at the way the knife is designed. You can see that the handle is up here on this line, roughly in line with the point, and the belly of the blade drops well below the handle. It's a neat design. It does create a claw-like feature that can be used in any of the fighting arts that specialize in the point down. So again, it's a specialized knife. It is not one that you're going to carry necessarily for EDC. Pretty much dedicated to defensive tactics. Let's take some measurements. We'll do some comparisons in a moment as well. So overall, we got a 7-inch fixed blade. If I measure right to the handle, we got 3.5 inches of blade. If I measure to the edge of the point up position, or shall we say the belly of the blade, get 3 1/8. And we get a little under 3 on the top edge. We'll call it the top edge because it depends upon which way you're carrying it. Call that 2 3/4 cutting edge there. Blade thickness in millimeters is pretty stout. We get 4.3 millimeters. Pretty good strong blade stock. And since it's ground to such a fine point, you need that thickness so you don't get an overly fine point. Handle is flat, easily measured, 0.55. Finally, see if we can get an accurate weight in ounces. And we get 4.5, we'll call it 4.5, 4.5 ounces. And if we weigh it with the sheath, assuming I put it in the right way, we get call it 5.5 ounces. So about an ounce worth of sheath, roughly. And that's pretty light for a sheath. And then it's going to depend upon what belt hardware you add, if you add any. Now, at first, I have to admit, I said, wow, this is even a little bit smaller than I bargained for. I knew it wasn't going to be a large knife, and he does make a slightly larger, like 4.5-inch version of this, and he is doing these in Magna Cut, as well as several other steels. He asked me if I wanted one in CTS XHP, and I said, sure. You know, that's a real sound steel. It is highly corrosion resistant, like 440, but it's very tough and holds an edge, kind of like D2. But they harden this up pretty good. And I don't have a Rockwell number for you, but I bet you it's 60 or over. It's a handy little tactical tool, I'll call it. Now, if I do some comparisons to some recently acquired point down knives, Pikal knives, here we have one from Ken Vehicate and BlackRock. This is the Virus, and I did a review on this. A little more, I'll give you the show side on that, because that is a chisel grind on that one. It's going to be a little larger knife, as you can see, with roughly the same size blade overall, but a little bit more handle on this guy. So, you know, you've got a little more real estate there, and you've got kind of a bird's beak that keeps you locked in to the handle, but it's not going to carry quite as compactly as the Smilodon. And then also a recent acquisition. Seems like I'm getting a lot of Pikal knives that are custom. This one is the Drog by Rib Splitter, and that's a little fancier. And you notice it's got more of a hook. So here we've got the point sort of in a straight line. Here we've got it sort of in a straight line because it's dropped or raised, depending upon which way you're holding it. It's a little more off-center. So this is a little bit more in line with what they're using in the Libre fighting, Ed Calderon style, where you've got that raised point. And all come in Kydex sheaths in, let's see, in Ken's take on it, he uses this plastic clip that's mounted low and therefore raises it out of the waistband a little bit more. And with the Rib Splitter, we've got a leather band where you slide your belt through to hold it horizontally on the belt. So different takes. This one's a little difficult to get in the sheath. So that's the knife. Those are the measurements, and we'll take another look around. Good thick stock, as we saw. And again, it's just enough handle and it's just enough blade. When you're going point down, it's better to have something small. You can work in close. It can be used to flick jab, it can be used to rip, and it can be used to cut away. So it's not often with these knives that they're double-edged where you get that double use. And you can also go with a point-up position. Yeah, certainly something like this could do some EDC work. You can't get your thumb way out on the blade because you're going to cut your thumb. You're going to split it in half. But definitely you can cut with this. Relatively shallow grind, but Dirk has put an amazing edge on both sides of that blade. So, custom knife in CTS XHP by Dirk Pinkerton. And thank you, Dirk. Wonderful purchase. And this price point on this is about $230. So for a custom knife, I think very reasonable for some exquisite work from a very well-known designer and maker. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe. This Old Sword will be back with you soon.